incorporating
Wow.
got it. Incorporating brain breaks. I think we expect people to sit for too long, and definitely our children that we work with. And so we've incorporated brain breaks, calming and focusing brain breaks within our professional development. And so my buddy here, Daniel, is going to lead us in a brain break before we start our new learning.
Yeah, it's a pretty simple one. And because she said sitting, I thought we've been sitting here. So if you want to, if you can in your space, stand up to do this, why not? Take a little break, like because you can do this standing up. You can also, I'm doing like a wide A stance now. It feels really good. This one is sort of a bit like progressive relaxation, if you've ever done that, where you like tense and then relax muscles. Very, 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 very simple one. And some people use them anyway, do resistance pieces like those bands under chairs sometimes in classrooms that can help people regulate by pushing against them. So in this case, what I'd like you to do is just take your hands together like this, right? And then so palms together, and just take a breath in and then push, right? As much as you're comfortable, push your hands against each other, and then take a breath in, relax it. Then go ahead and hook your hands like this, right? Take a breath in and then pull out, right? As hard as you want. You can go pro Olympic, or you can just be really gentle with it. And then, okay, we're going to release that. We're going to go back to palms together, breath in, push, and then relax. And then we flip it and reverse it like this. We take a breath in. See what I did there? And then you pull out like that. And then you go like this. You make a little heart and you look at everybody, both eyes, and that's all I got.
So that there is some muscle stretches also linked on the agenda, and the book that Daniel and I use to put that we've learned a lot of these from is also in the resource part of the agenda. It's called 101 brain-based activities
From Neurologic.
But it is linked in the agenda too.
It's a swell book.
Yeah. All right. So when we today we'll give you an opportunity to give us some feedback, but we always look at what people are interested. The SEL for Oregon leadership team, we try to be responsive of what the needs in our statewide community are as far as what you're interested in around SEL. And just based on the RSVPs, a summary of it was really about adult SEL, SEL implementation, and the connection between trauma-informed practices, equity, and SEL. And so what we did today was we invited Jim Bach here. He's actually a colleague from Arizona. I was able to see a presentation of his at the Urban Assembly SEL Champions Group, and thought that it would be very valuable to those of us that are working on SEL implementation in our districts and our buildings. And so I'm going to introduce Jim. He is an educator for 24 years. He's been a teacher, a classroom teacher, an assistant principal, a principal, and now is the SEL director in Florence Unified, which is outside of Phoenix. And I'm going to turn it over to Jim.
Awesome. Thank you, Angela. Thank you, Marie Claire. Thank you, David, for having me. Thank you all. And also thank you, Daniel, for that activity, that brain break activity. It actually helped me because I was telling Angela, I was a little bit nervous to present today, but I appreciate that because that was helpful in regulating me a little bit there. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Hopefully I do it right. And there it is. All right. Can I get a thumbs up if we're seeing something? All right. Thank you, folks, for that. And then I'm just going to go here. All right. Perfect. Okay. So, gosh, where do I begin? SEL in Arizona, kind of an anomaly, to be honest. We are growing, but slowly in the state when it comes to SEL. So my goal here today is kind of just tell you a little bit about our journey as a district, and how the evolution of, from start to where we are now, and our journey with SEL. So who is Florence Unified School District? We would be considered a rural school district in Arizona. We have 10,000 students throughout our district. Really, we are two separate towns in a way. We have the town of Santan Valley, which has close to 100,000 people in it, believe it or not. And then we have the town of Florence. And Florence is the original town where the district began back in the 1800s. So it's been quite some time. We are huge, though, not huge in size with students and schools, but the distance is geographically the size of Rhode Island. So it's actually a really large span within our district. Our transportation department is amazing because they travel all over the district, picking up kids and bringing them to school every day. We would consider ourselves a bedroom community. The urban planners, in all of their wisdom, I think didn't do the best job of creating the town of Santan Valley, and basically created a little town of just hundreds and thousands of homes, just a lot of homes and not a lot of infrastructure. And so the folks that live here are here for really to live in their homes, to they have dinner with their families, they go to bed, then they wake up and they go into town. When I say into town, I say Mesa, Gilbert, Chandler. You probably heard of some of those places. That's where they work, that's where they normally entertain. There's not a lot to do in Santan Valley and Florence areas, so that's why we're considered a bedroom community. The unfortunate piece with that is that we don't have much of a community. So it's difficult to really get people involved from the community within the schools. We have quite a few charters around in the area as well. So having that communication about SEL with our parents can be difficult at times, and that's something that we're really working on. About 3 years-ish ago, our assistant superintendent gave me a call on the phone and asked me if I would head an SEL curriculum committee. And I said, sure, that sounds like fun. So he and I got a team put together. We made sure that it was an interdisciplinary team. We focused on folks from the K-8, folks from high school, classified staff. We have a district psychologist on it, a person that specializes in neuroscience, which is one of our newer members we're happy to have, parents. I am a parent with children in the district, so I kind of serve both roles. We have some district leadership and then also some assistant principals as well on our team. We thought it was important to have all the stakeholders involved in the communication and in creating this plan for SEL. Well, at the time, it was just a curriculum we were vetting. As we looked, we kind of started to dive into the research back then. We really dug into CASEL. We used that to drive all of our work within the district. We realized that it wasn't about the curriculum. And as I feel like I'm speaking to the choir here. We all know that SEL is not about the curriculum. And what we decided that we wanted to create what we thought was a strong, stable foundation. So we used this graphic, and I'm not going to take credit for it. It was borrowed from another district in Texas. But we want to create a stable foundation. And in order for you to have a stool with 4 strong legs, you need to have these 4 things in place. So our SEL stool, we started with culture and climate. We always want to make sure that we're including parents and community in the, just in the communication, classroom integration, and then the explicit instruction. So over the past couple of years, we've been focusing mostly on culture and climate, on laying that foundation for SEL. As we moved along, work was driven by CASEL. We looked at, CASEL's 5 competencies. One of the people that were on our district team, who is now a consultant on our team, she was the ESS director for our district. She really thought it was important that we talked a little bit about executive functions as that being a competency. Before I jumped on, I was like, what if somebody asks me a question of why we did that? So I kind of jumped on, did a little bit of thought, a little bit of research, and thought to myself, yes, executive functioning does fall into self-management, but it also falls into responsible decision-making. So not just students in special education need executive functioning, we all need executive functioning skills. So we thought to have 6 competencies rather than just the Castle 5. And then the outer rings, we're probably going to have to revise this, but the outer rings we would really call like the foundation or the plate. We want to have equity, inclusivity, diversity, connection, belonging, and those really important pieces that create that foundation to build off of. Once we did that, then we did look into the 3 signature practices for SEL, but we did include another because we thought that if we could teach what we call our SEL essential practices, our 4 practices, that if we could integrate those into all of our classrooms within our district, then we were creating that culture and climate. So we have welcoming routines or welcoming activities. We consider that essential practice 1, meetings in circles, 2, and then I'll jump to 4, which we all do. We're going to be doing 1 today, and that's optimistic closures. So those are our 3 essential practices that, or essential signature practices that Castle used. We added what we call SEL it, and SEL it is what we like to say is having social, emotional, and academic learning goals and embedding those together within our lesson planning. But not just linking the 2, but also having success criteria for SEL. Something really simple. Let's just say that today we're getting a math test back, right? What would be the success criteria for receiving a math test back if I'm thinking of my SEL competencies? So it might be, if I get a poor grade, how am I going to be self-aware of my feelings when I receive that test back? Am I going to be sad about that? Then how do I manage my skills? How do I manage my emotions based off of receiving that test back? So again, integrating some of those SEL objective standards and skills within our core content. We're asking our teachers to do that. Again, this is a part of what we're building. We're not quite there yet. Now you'll hear me reference and say we're not quite there yet. Okay. Over the past 3 years, these are the things that we've really focused on. As I said earlier, that strong foundation, building adult SEL capacity. We had leadership support. We still have it. We did lose, when I say lose, I mean, he moved to a different district. He became superintendent in an elementary district in Arizona. But we did lose that assistant superintendent who was the driving force behind SEL. But we do have new leadership. The new leadership is great. They are supportive, just in a little bit of a different way. So building that leadership, and then we started with essential practices amongst the leadership. So when we have our ATM, our administrative team meetings, when we have staff meetings, we're asking the leaders to model those SEL essential practices of welcoming activities, optimistic closures, doing circles within those meetings as well. Last year and the year before, we did focus a lot on student voice and wellness, as well as educator resiliency because of COVID. We did create a survey we call the Welcome, Safe, and Connected Survey, which we have been doing now for a couple of years. And basically, it just asks really 6 simple questions. If students feel welcome, if they feel safe, both physically and emotionally safe, and whether they feel connected to one another as well as the adults within the school. It's great feedback for us because what we're noticing is that they feel connected, usually feel connected peer-to-peer, but oftentimes in some cases they don't feel quite connected with staff. So we started to put in place relationship inventories and 2x10 strategies at our sites to build those relationships with kids. We did utilize some ESSER money. We started, we have about 4 social workers and counselors on our staff now in our district. Certainly not enough. We need 1 at every site, but that's at least a start. Then we moved on to educator resiliency. Again, that was last year. We're doing a little bit of that again this year. We were fortunate enough to have Ricky Robertson present. And Ricky Robertson talked a lot about educator resiliency. We talked about the 4 A's of resiliency in a resilient classroom. And then we utilized the ProQuil, the Professional Quality of Life Survey, to measure compassion fatigue, as well as stress and burnout amongst educators, and then created some plans to help them with their own, but also community wellness within their sites. And then this year, we're focusing mostly on our essential practices and trying to integrate those practices into core content. Really, when I gave this presentation to the Urban Assembly, talked a lot about wanting to have evidence of impact because, again, SEL in Arizona, I believe that I am one of maybe 3 directors in the state. So there's not a lot of SEL directors in the state. And so it's in many different stages in Arizona. In some schools, in some districts, it's non-existent. But we want to see, with all that we've done throughout this year and the years past, are we seeing some positive changes? And am I going to keep my job? I'm just kidding. And what does that look like moving forward? So one of the things that I've done recently that I actually started when we got back from the holiday break, I'm going to skip over this and go back to this, is we started, and thank you. I want to say thank you to Angela because she provided some resources for me and I kind of begged, borrowed, and stole and made it like our own. So I've been sitting down with principals and getting sort of a state of the state with them, trying to figure out where each site is at when it comes to our SEL implementation. So create our own sort of roadmap because we do oftentimes, we don't realize that proper implementation is a marathon and not a sprint. And we oftentimes see that our students are struggling. We see that our teachers are struggling. And right away, we just want to throw a curriculum at someone because we believe that is going to cure everything. And we know that's not true. So this is a roadmap that I'm using for my site leaders to help them to kind of figure out where they are, but also to let them know that these are the things we want to do to get to whole child learning, to help our students to thrive academically, behaviorally, and social emotionally. So I've been doing that with them. They've been filling out a survey, and then we've been doing some SWOT analysis to kind of develop some specialized PD plans for their sites. So I'm going to hop back. I hope I can hop back. There it is. Yeah. And then I'm going to kind of conclude. I don't know how long I've been going for, Angela. Am I good on time? Yes, thumbs up. All right, cool. We're really trying to focus this year and last year on MTSS work in everything that we do. And so I kind of like to talk a little bit about MTSS. I don't know where y'all are in MTSS, and I'd love to hear. We often look at MTSS as a pyramid or as a triangle. And our team, this is just what our team believes, is that it shouldn't be a triangle, that it is iterative, it's flexible, it's not linear in any way, shape, or form. So we like to call this, our version, we call it the layered cake is what we like to call it. Because there are 3 tiers, of course, it's the 3 different sections of MTSS, but students can be in different places at different times. They don't have to be always for example, they don't have to be in, tier 2 for behavior and tier 2 for SEL. They might be in tier 3 for SEL, or they might be in tier 3 for academics. So this for us is a visual for our sites to understand that that it is in flux. You can move around in MTSS, that when we start with a training, we always put this visual up and say, this is what we're talking about today. So for example, if we were talking about the essential practices, we would say this is tier 1 PBI or tier 1 SEL, and we would show that. We also, I'm missing an arrow. The arrows are supposed to go up and down to represent that they can go in different directions. The other thing that we said that we didn't like about the pyramid was the fact that a pyramid often gives you, and we believe, the subconscious idea that you need to move forward or you need to move up all the time. And we want to move up and down. We want to give students the best that we can give them of all that we can give them. And oftentimes in special education, and this is my friend, the ESS director talking, we get the students to what we call tier 3, and then they stay there and they don't get the other tiers. And it's important for them to get all the tiers, all the support that they possibly need. So that's kind of where we're at. I'd love feedback on this visual. I'd love feedback on that thinking, even challenge some of that thinking for me. I would love that so I can bring that to my team. And then this is a fun one that we use for our staff as well. Again, the idea that special education isn't tier 3, that special education is something else. So if we're going to sit down and have a picnic and we're going to eat some dessert, we want to start with what's on the plate, right? The most important pieces are on the plate, and that's trauma-informed care, it's equity, inclusivity, connection, belonging. Those are the things that are the foundation for all these other things to begin. Because, if you don't have some of those things, you're not going to be able to get to our students. You're not going to be able to help them with their tier 1 instruction, right? If you don't have that connection, if you're not using equitable practices, being culture responsive, you're not going to be able to really get to those folks. And then obviously the cake, there's our representational layer cake, and then special education is the cupcake. It's the extra piece that students get. So again, would love some feedback on that visual as well. Please challenge that if you would. I would love it, so I can bring some feedback to my team as well. One last thing I wanted to say, because I know that there are higher ed folks on this call right now. How I know that there is some SEL in teacher training in higher ed in Oregon. I know that. If it is at your college or university, how did you get the conversation started for that? So I'm currently at ASU right now, Arizona State University, and I want to start a conversation. I looked at their courses for teacher training programs at the Mary Lou Fulton, and there are 0 courses on social emotional learning. So I would love if anybody had some feedback on that or wanted to connect about that. That would be great. I want to thank you, Angela and Marie Claire, and David as well for having me today. So thank you.
Thank you. And you ended right exactly on time. Like that was
good.
Nice job.